James Garner finally breaks silence on Steve McQueen. Oh, McQueen. Crazy McQueen. McQueen and I got along pretty good. McQueen looked at me kind of like an older brother. James Garner, the legendary star of Maverick and the Rockford Files, was known across the globe for his effortless wit, rugged charm, and a level of honesty that was rare in the hills of Hollywood. But for decades, there was one chapter of his life he kept under a tight lock and key. His time on the set of the 1963 masterpiece The Great Escape wasn't just a cinematic milestone, it was the backdrop for a fiery, silent clash with Steve McQueen, one of Hollywood's most enigmatic and difficult stars. Now, long after Garner's passing, his candid revelations about McQueen have surfaced, exposing a side of their relationship that few could have imagined. What secrets did Garner take to the grave? The truth is finally out. But before we get into these stunning revelations, we must explore the early events that forged the man who wasn't afraid to stand up to the king of cool. The untold battles of James Garner. James Garner wasn't just a Hollywood icon, he was a survivor. Long before he was the sly gambler Brett Maverick or the unfappable Jim Rockford, he was a boy named James Scott Bumgarner, born during the height of the Great Depression in 1928. His early life in Oklahoma was a gauntlet of tragedy. He lost his mother at just 5 years old, and his father, Weldon, spiraled into alcoholism after their family hardware store burned to the ground. Garner and his brothers endured horrific neglect. When his father remarried, things grew even darker. His stepmother, Wilma, was reportedly a monster who beat him and humiliated him by forcing him to wear women's clothing. At 14, Garner finally fought back, overpowering her in self-defense. It was the moment he realized he would never let anyone push him around again. That grit followed him into the U.S. Army during the Korean War. Garner was injured twice, once by shrapnel and once by friendly fire, earning 2 Purple Hearts. Interestingly, the war gave him a lifelong aversion to garlic. He once caught the scent of garlic in the cold night air, realized enemy soldiers were nearby, as their diets were heavy in it, and alerted his unit just in time to prevent a deadly ambush. The Maverick Gambit. Returning home, Garner stumbled into acting through a talent agent named Paul Gregory. His big break came in 1957 with Maverick. He brought a unique, comedic edge to the Western genre, making the show a runaway hit. However, Garner's career was defined by his willingness to gamble. In 1960, during a writer's strike, Warner Brothers tried to lay him off without pay. Instead of bowing to the studio bosses, Garner did the unthinkable. He sued Warner Brothers for breach of contract. He won, a victory that sent shockwaves through the industry. He walked away from his most famous role because he refused to be treated like a puppet. Warner Brothers tried to replace him with cousins played by Roger Moore and Robert Colbert, but the magic was gone. Garner had proven he was irreplaceable. If you're enjoying this video, make sure to check out the other stories and shocking updates on our channel. We've covered many incredible celebrity journeys, tragic endings, and untold Hollywood secrets that you don't want to miss. Binge watch our previous videos to discover more surprising facts, emotional stories, and where your favorite stars are today. Your support helps us bring you more powerful content like this, so don't forget to explore, watch more, and stay tuned for the next video. The Great Escape and the McQueen clashing. In 1963, Garner joined the ensemble cast of The Great Escape. It was a true story of Allied prisoners of war, and Garner played Henley, the scrounger. His co-star was Steve McQueen, who played the cooler king. On screen, they were allies. Off-screen, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Steve McQueen was a man driven by deep-seated insecurities. He arrived on set in a Rolls-Royce, stayed in a private chalet, and constantly demanded more screen time. He was frustrated by Garner's natural charisma and the way Garner's character often stole the spotlight. McQueen's tantrums became so disruptive that director John Sturges actually considered firing him and making Garner the lead of the entire film. In his 2011 memoir, The Garner Files, James finally broke his silence. He didn't mince words, describing McQueen as a pain in the ass. Garner believed McQueen was a movie star rather than a true actor, relying on a cultivated persona rather than craft. He was like a little brother, Garner noted, but he was an insecure little brother who was prone to jealousy. Garner revealed that McQueen's wife, Neil, used to confide in him about Steve's unfounded suspicions of infidelity. McQueen even once falsely accused Garner of having an affair with her, a claim Garner dismissed as a product of McQueen's paranoid anxieties. Feuds beyond McQueen. Charles Bronson. Garner's honesty didn't stop with McQueen. He also had a legendary run-in with another co-star, Charles Bronson. Garner described Bronson as bitter and belligerent. The two nearly came to blows during a poker game when Bronson refused to pay out winnings to a struggling Hollywood extra. Garner, the man who stood up to studio heads and stepmothers alike, demanded Bronson pay up. The tension was so high that even years later, when the two ran into each other at a restaurant, the bad blood was still palpable. Substances, secrets, and the Rockford Files. In his later years, Garner was refreshingly honest about the grittier side of Hollywood. He admitted to experimenting with substances, including MJ and white stuff, even recounting a wild night with the late John Belushi. He was a proud liberal, a civil rights activist who marched with Martin Luther King Jr., and a man who didn't care if his political beliefs cost him fans. In 1974, he launched the Rockford Files. Jim Rockford was the everyman detective, down on his luck, living in a trailer and constantly getting beaten up. Garner insisted on doing his own stunts, including the famous J-turn in his gold Pontiac Firebird. But the physical toll was devastating. By the sixth season, his knees and back were shattered. Like his departure from Maverick, he eventually sued Universal Studios over unpaid royalties for Rockford, fighting another 8-year battle and winning a massive settlement. The final stand. James Garner's final years were a battle against his own body. Decades of stunts, a stroke in 2008, and multiple surgeries slowed him down, but they never took his spirit. On the set of Space Cowboys, he dislocated his shoulder, and Clint Eastwood had to provide first aid. Even then, Garner laughed it off. He passed away on July 19, 2014, at the age of 86. He left behind a legacy of integrity, a legendary marriage to Lois Clark that lasted nearly 60 years, and a trail of stories that finally showed the world what really happened when the cameras stopped rolling. James Garner was the real deal, a man who lived by his own rules and wasn't afraid to call out the biggest names in the business. Thank you for watching this deep dive into Hollywood history on Royal Time of Hollywood. If you enjoyed hearing the truth about these legends, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below about your favorite James Garner role.